Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But without you, your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to conservative causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to conservative causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
This is Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
And welcome to this Veterans Day edition of Kentucky's Voice. We're here every day, 11 to noon, but this is a special day as we recognize, celebrate, and honor those who have sacrificed and served for this country. And if you're one of those folks, we want to say thank you for your service right from the get-go today. And we'd also like to hear from you on our Kentucky's Voice text line. Text us a comment saying, I served. Tell us maybe where or what you're doing now. And inspire us today. We want to hear from you. 502-571-0970 is our Kentucky's Voice text line. We'd love to hear from you, especially today if you have served in the armed forces of this great nation. And we'll talk about some of the services being offered to veterans in our state with Dr. Silas Session, who's Executive Director of the Kentucky Department of Veterans Affairs. And also, he may give us some insight on some happenings around the state today with this Veterans Day, some of the services available to veterans that you might not know about or that some may need to know about and could be helpful in addressing critical issues with veterans in our Commonwealth. Folks, we need to do everything we can to help those who have served among us. They have given so much for us, and they deserve our very best. By the way, it's not only Veterans Day, it's game day. It's game day, yes, in Louisville, Kentucky today. Number 9, University of Kentucky Wildcats. Number 12, U of L, play tonight on the basketball hardwood at KFC Yum Center. It's the first time that both teams have been ranked in the top 25 when they've played each other since 2019. Which in a college basketball crazy state like Kentucky, we are, just call us a crazy college basketball commonwealth, the crazy commonwealth when it comes to basketball. But in that game, by the way, 6 years ago, Kentucky beat the third-ranked Cardinals. Kentucky was ranked, I think it was 14th, but they beat the third-ranked Cardinals in overtime, 78-70. That game was at Rupp Arena, but tonight U of L will enjoy some home cooking as they try to win the only game that matters to many, many, many folks on both sides of that, both the red and blue nations. And so you'll enjoy that tonight, but I and some others will be setting our DVRs for that game because we'll be out at tonight's meeting of the Kentucky Patriots at the Frisch's Restaurant in Georgetown. I'll be speaking to that group. If you're in the area, join us at 6:30 p.m. I'll make some comments, take your questions. I'm sure we'll talk about the upcoming legislative session, which now is only about less than 60 days away. And again, we'll talk politics, policy, whatever's on your mind tonight, 6:30 p.m. at Frisch's, 460 Connector Road in Georgetown. But first, we've got a ray of hope piercing through the D.C. swamp fog. After 41 grueling days, the longest government shutdown in American history, the Schumer shutdown, is coming to an end, it appears. The U.S. Senate voted 60-40 last night to support a bipartisan bill to reopen the federal spigot and get Uncle Sam back to work. 8 Democrats joined the Republican majority to support the compromise. And now the House must vote on it, and the president must sign the bill for it to take effect, all of which should happen this week. At the center of this shutdown fight has been health care, or really I should say health care spending. Schumer's Democrats are desperate to keep Obamacare going and the billions we're paying in subsidies afloat. It's their crown jewel of government overreach, but Republicans have drawn a line in the sand and said, while we're not opposed to debating about future subsidies and spending on Obamacare. We will not allow political extortion to succeed, because if you do, it sets a precedent. So reopen the government, they said, and we can have that debate. And they have held firm, and it appears now finally the Democrats are caving. But like so many big government programs, the left wants to take a temporary safety net and make it a big, costly government program for Kentucky's taxpayers. We'll talk more about the shutdown, the left's fight to continue Obamacare subsidies, the high cost of health care, and possibly what can be done about it, coming up on Kentucky's Voice. Stay with us. Don't go away, as we'll continue to update you on this shutdown, what caused it, what can we do to have more affordable health care in our nation and our Commonwealth.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Well, like so many big government programs, the left wants to take what was a temporary safety net for Americans affected by job displacement or unforeseen events like the pandemic and turn it into a socialist program that moves America toward a single-payer system, a government-run healthcare apparatus, and keep all of us dependent on government, or as many folks as they can. Joe Biden's reckless Inflation Reduction Act extensions contain these so-called affordable care subsidies. And what the left has been clamoring for is simply a bailout of Obamacare that will benefit big hospitals, big pharma, and big insurance. They were trying to force Republicans to rubber stamp another $100 billion plus infusion into their failing exchanges to keep them afloat through this year, pretending it's healthcare access, when really it's just vote-buying welfare that explodes the deficit and crowds out real market solutions. And that's what we need here, folks. We need real free market solutions interjected into this healthcare mess. By the way, whatever happened to Obama's promise that Obamacare would reduce health insurance premiums by $2,500 for American families? Instead, we're now left with a program that's left millions uninsured, rewarded those who won't work, and driven up costs by 25%, creating nothing more than a political slush fund for the left. We're taking your thoughts and comments and questions today on the government shutdown and what's at the center of this, the health care, Obamacare subsidies, and that whole issue of a more affordable health care really is what is at stake here. But we're taking your comments, questions, thoughts about that today on our Kentucky's Voice text line at 502-571-0970. That's 502-571-0970. And Dan, do we have our guest with us? We're working on that. We're going to be hopefully joined here by Joel White, who's president of the Council for Affordable Health Care Coverage, and having a couple of technical issues, but we'll get those figured out. But in the meantime, thanks for staying with us here on Kentucky's Voice. We're here each weekday, 11 to noon. By the way, you can see this program, you can hear this program live on the radio on 970 WGTK and on channel 21 WBNA television at 12:30, 4, and 8. Later today. Same program. We're taping it right now for a replay. And of course, you can hear us across the social media platforms on YouTube, Facebook. You can hear it live as it streams on there, just like you do on the radio. In case you haven't heard, last night, 8 Democrats joined the Republican caucus in the U.S. Senate to get to the 60 votes needed to approve a compromise plan to end the government shutdown. The House, of course, still must approve this plan, which we expect them to do sometime tomorrow, and for the government to finally reopen after the longest shutdown in history of the government, 41 days. And and of course, you just had to know this was going to happen at some point. The spending on healthcare, on Obamacare, the subsidies, all of that was going to come to a head at some point, and that it was going to be debated, and at some point it was going to cause this kind of controversy, because healthcare is really the issue that the left has, that they think they have, to try to leverage against the momentum being made by Republicans in so many areas. But of course, the Trump administration has made great progress in negotiating for lower drug prices, in taking some action that will actually make healthcare more affordable for Americans. And the U.S. Senate, one of those senators is the junior senator from Kentucky, Senator Rand Paul. It almost doesn't sound right to say junior senator, because he's been there now long enough that, but the formal term is junior senator from the state. But he said in a recent op-ed that Republicans should not cave on the Obamacare subsidies. He has a better plan. He said Republicans should not immediately capitulate and agree to throw more taxpayer money at a failed government program. Consumers, he said, have the power to improve the cost and quality of health care in America. And Senator Paul pointed out in his op-ed, which you can read, by the way, in the Career Journal recently, a few days ago, USA Today, it was in several different publications. But he said that the cost of Obamacare has become so burdensome that families making up to $600,000 a year qualify for thousands of dollars in enhanced taxpayer-funded subsidies. He said, I think the average American would be enraged to know that their tax dollars are going toward health care for rich people. Isn't it ironic that the same group that talks about not providing education choice because they don't want to fund rich people's kids' education, and even though that the programs would help lower and middle income Americans and Kentuckians, that they're the same people that are willing to go along with a big government, big hospital, big pharma, big socialist program like Obamacare that actually forces middle class Americans, those who are struggling to make ends meet, to actually pay for enhanced subsidies for the rich and for the wealthy. And it's the left that's defending that. The same folks who will fight against us here, for example, having school choice scholarships, because they say it helps and funds the education of the kids of rich people. And Senator Paul says, not just bad policy, it's nonsensical. He said Democrats don't care if it makes sense as long as they can preserve this lucrative arrangement for large health insurance companies and their wealthy supporters. They want to keep these subsidies for rich people so badly that they literally shut down the government over it. Republicans leaders insist they will not submit to the Democrats' demands that taxpayer subsidies prop up the crumbling edifice of Obamacare under the duress of a government shutdown. And Senator Paul is right, but he also expresses concern, and this is a concern that we as taxpayers should have, that even after this government shutdown is over and Washington gets back to normal, and certainly we need to always be looking at what that looks like and what that costs, but just for the sake of communicating about this issue, Washington gets back to normal, he says that's when conservatives and Republicans need to be the most aware and wary of more spending on these Obamacare subsidies in an attempt to compromise by the Republicans. He said Republicans should not immediately capitulate and throw more taxpayer money at this failed government program. Rather, they should embrace free market reforms to dissolve the chains of regulation that needlessly make healthcare more expensive. He said his plan, and he's touting his plan, and it's a good plan. It's called the Health Marketplace for All Act, which would make healthcare more affordable, by allowing individuals to join together to collectively bargain and improve their leverage to negotiate lower healthcare premiums from insurers. So, in other words, there's strength in numbers. He said leaders from both major parties should agree that the empowerment of consumers, not mandates and subsidies, will improve the cost and quality of healthcare in America. And this is something the left doesn't always want to talk about, because it's actually the case that the more regulation we have, the more costly healthcare becomes and the less of a free market we have. So when you have a socialist program, a collectivist program like Obamacare, it doesn't allow the principles of free market healthcare policy to work. And in every sector of our society, no matter what it is, education, business, healthcare, economics, whatever it may be, whenever there's more competition, it always lowers the cost of the product and improves the service of the product. And we've talked about this before, but previously when Obama expanded and Obamacare expanded eligibility for Medicaid, the state of Kentucky is one of the worst poster children for that policy, because we went from having several 100,000 people on Medicaid to actually having 1 out of every 3 Kentuckians on Medicaid in our state. And we had people who left their private insurance company, who were through their employers paying for health care. And all of a sudden, because of the expanded eligibility of this program, they became eligible for the government-funded health care. And so you and I, as taxpayers, are paying the freight and the health care cost of those who could be contributing more to their own health care. And that's something else that government programs do. They take away individual responsibility. They take away skin in the game for people to be involved. And when people are involved in paying for something, they pay much more attention to what it costs. They want to know more about what it costs. They want to know what kind of care they're getting, what kind of return on investment they're getting. But if it doesn't cost them anything, they tend to not think about those issues. And the fact is, they tend oftentimes not to get as good of care. So that's just an example of how more regulation has increased the cost of health care in our system, especially in Kentucky. And so no government program should ever be for permanency unless it's for the truly disabled, the truly indigent, which was what Medicaid was for and what it began as, but has become much bigger, much more bloated, much more of a bureaucracy than it ever should be. We'll talk more about the government shutdown, the healthcare issues and cost and fight, the Obamacare subsidies at the heart of that. Coming up, stay with us here on Kentucky's Voice, 502-571-0970. Let us hear from you.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Thanks for staying with us here today on a special Veterans Day edition of Kentucky's Voice. We want to hear from you, 502-571-0970. Maybe you're a veteran out there who's served this country. We want to say thank you for your service, especially if you're here in the Commonwealth with us. We'd love to hear from you, even if it's just a simple, hey, I'm listening, I served, here's where I served, here's what I'm doing now. Whatever you want to let us know, we'd love to hear from you. We'll share those today before the program is over with. But right now, 8 Democrats last night joined the Republican caucus in the U.S. Senate to get to the 60 votes needed to approve a compromise plan to end the government shutdown. The House, of course, must still approve, which we expect them to do sometime tomorrow. But to talk about this and the issues central to this fight over the government shutdown, which was the central issue here is a bailout of Obamacare subsidies and health care subsidies on the part of taxpayers, is Joel White, president of the Council for Affordable Health Care Coverage. Joel, thanks for joining us. You know, it almost had to happen at some point, a fight to the bitter end, if you will, over health care and these Obamacare subsidies. You could just see this coming, sir. Okay, well, we're still working on our sound here, and I can see you, Joel, but I can't hear you, brother. But we'll get that fixed. We have two very, very different points of view on health insurance coverage in this country. Two very sharp, and they're sharply different. We have those on the left who believe that health insurance is a right on the level of constitutional God-given rights of life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and health insurance, if you will, and those who want to move us to a single-payer system versus those on the right who have a more traditional view, if you will, more conservative, obviously, view, which is let's remove unnecessary regulation, let's interject free market principles into our healthcare policy and decisions, and let's allow market forces to compete for patients. Let's allow more creation of different kinds of plans that are tailored to meet individuals' needs, our groups' needs for covering illness, encouraging wellness. The problem, as many conservatives believe, is that we've had too much government. While those on the left clamor for more government involvement, we don't have enough, they say. And are we going to try Joel here again? Okay, we're working on that. I don't think anyone would disagree that we need more affordable, better health care. But, folks, these artificial props like Obamacare, how many times do we have to try these types of government programs before we're convinced that no matter how well-intentioned, they often end up making the problem worse? And we were talking about that in the last segment about Medicaid, and how that's a great example of that. When the Medicaid program was started, it was intended to serve and provide health care and coverage for really the truly indigent and those who are truly disabled. And it was never meant to be a huge, large bureaucratic program like it's become. It's certainly the founders and creators of Medicaid certainly would never have intended for 1 out of every 3 Kentuckians to be on this government program. And so, and even if you might agree with that program, or you might have been supportive of that, I think you have to agree that it's much better when individuals can find their own policy, their own insurance that meets their own needs, that's tailored to their specific needs, and that doesn't cost taxpayers. And because when we have taxpayers paying for this, then that makes the cost of their own health insurance go up, and so it's not worked. President Barack Obama said that Obamacare, his health care plan, is a signature policy of his administration, the one that there was probably one of the biggest political fights in our lifetime over, that it would dramatically and drastically reduce the cost of healthcare for Americans and American families in our country. It hasn't happened, folks. The facts are the facts. And this is something that the left, when you start talking facts, they have a real problem with this, and they just become very stubborn in their ideology. And that's what we've seen in this government shutdown. It's not been about the facts. It's not been about, hey, Obamacare hasn't worked. We're subsidizing wealthy folks at the expense of middle-class Americans who are struggling to make ends meet. And in the process of that, we're driving up the cost of our health care, as Senator Paul talked about in his op-ed that we had quoted from earlier, read from, that the costs have dramatically increased for healthcare in this country. So it just hasn't happened. The facts are what they are. And I think that if we got back to that, of course, we would have a better time getting these things resolved and have a much better policy. As Senator Paul mentioned, he said we've continued to see costs rise so that the average, are you ready for this? The average employer-sponsored health insurance premium is now just under $27,000 a year. Providing health insurance to employees, he says, should not cost as much as a new car. So, and one of the concerns that he has, one that we should have, is that once this government shutdown is over, once things get reopened, that there's going to be a real temptation there by the Republicans to cave on this and to give in to some demands that we continue to bail out Obamacare. But instead, he said, we should do something that would empower groups of Americans, that would empower employers to provide high quality health benefits at affordable prices. And I want to quote from his op-ed that was just in the Career Journal a few days ago and USA Today and several other publications. But Senator Paul said, and I quote, Obamacare destroyed the individual health insurance market with onerous regulations, so we must radically expand the ability of individuals to join together to purchase health insurance as employers under the Employee Retirement Income Security Act. So he said one of the major reasons why many Americans don't have access to affordable health insurance is they don't work for a large corporation. And this is about numbers, folks. He says, as he points out, a sole proprietorship, a small business has very little leverage when it comes to working against big insurance. He says if someone gets very sick in the group does not have the protection of hundreds or even thousands of people sharing the risk. So basically what his plan would be to address that by allowing any group of people to join together to provide health insurance to its members, regardless of employment relationship, regardless of whether they work for him. He talked about member organizations being able to give a large boost of leverage to an otherwise small group of health insurance customers. It would empower them to form a much larger unit and collectively bargain with health insurers for better rates. And as he points out, large corporations already have this ability. They have negotiating power with insurance companies because they have lots of customers that are going to buy and purchase health insurance from those companies. And so they have access to many more resources than small businesses do, things that small businesses simply can't afford. And they benefit from these massive economies of scale, as he said, that make up the large administrative cost and health benefits, or that make that more affordable, more efficient. Small businesses are at a significant competitive disadvantage when most Americans who don't receive health care from the government expect their employer to provide it. Small insurers are often unable to self-insure and pay for all claims with their own revenues, a key tool for controlling health care costs that large companies utilize. And so he says small businesses are then forced to buy expensive, fully insured plans from these large companies like Blue Cross, United, Cigna, Aetna, or move employees over to Obamacare and Medicaid. But what he's saying is, instead of doing that, instead of shifting more healthcare costs to the taxpayers, we can make it easier for workers to use their freedom of association to get higher quality healthcare. The government should not stand in the way of market-based incentives to lower the cost of health insurance. So he said, imagine membership-based services like Costco memberships and Amazon Prime subscriptions giving you the ability to access high-quality healthcare as well. It's called the Health Marketplace for All Act. Churches could participate, credit unions, nonprofit associations, many groups could participate, and this is what should happen to drive down the cost of healthcare, improve the quality of it, and give more people access to great health insurance and coverage in our country. Stay tuned, more coming up.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Well, it's Veterans Day, and we're delighted to be joined today on this Veterans Day 2025 by a leader among veterans in our Commonwealth, Dr. Silas Session, who serves in the Kentucky Department of Veterans Affairs as the Executive Director for Veterans Service. Dr. Session, thanks for joining us here today on Kentucky's Voice on this Veterans Day. We're so delighted to have you, sir, with us. And we just want to say happy Veterans Day to you, and thank you for your service. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity, Jim. Thank you.
Well, tell us a little bit about your service and your background first, and we'll get to some other things I know you're working on currently. But give us a little background. You're not just a retired Army officer, but you're a veteran of Iraqi freedom and the Afghanistan campaigns, and these campaigns that have been so important in our more recent history. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Yes, I actually started my military career in the South Carolina Army National Guard as a supply specialist to help pay for college. Speaking of college, I went to the Citadel, Military College of South Carolina.
You're proud of that, I imagine.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I need to get down there a little more, but
Yeah.
I was commissioned as a field artillery officer at the Citadel, and then it was interesting. My first duty station was Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and my last duty station was Fort Knox, Kentucky. So I also spent some time at Fort Sill, a large stint at Fort Hood, and also some training at Fort Leavenworth. As you mentioned, Jim, I did two tours in Iraq, one tour in Afghanistan, and then my final tour was in Kuwait. And even here, as we're training and doing the things we need to do while we're in the U.S., was actually able. I was deployed to Louisiana during Katrina to help our country's citizens during that time. So, I mean, got to do a lot of great things as far as leading men and women in and out of combat situations, and excited to be a part of this show and to share my story regarding being a veteran.
Well, that's great. And Dr. Session, especially as we get down the road a little bit, historically speaking, from those conflicts, what is it you want your fellow Kentuckians and Americans to know about those? You talked about the role you played, but what is it that you want your grandchildren, for example, to know about that?
That's a great question. When it comes to serving our country, the very small percentage of men and women that decide to do so,
Mhm.
we commit to serve and fight the nation's wars, regardless of our personal thought and opinion. But when we were able to assist in our responsibilities, whether it was like I'll mention Afghanistan and Iraq. I mean, I have a grandson that just turned 7. I remember every time when we did different deployments. I mean, I would see children his age, and they would give us the thumbs up. Uh, you know, in fact, that we had to learn some of the different languages, but most of the children we came in contact with would say "What's up." Um, the people in those countries are trying to live their lives and trying to have a better life for their families,
Mhm.
just like we are. So there's a lot of commonalities when it comes to you dealing with the different people from those different areas. There's a human element to this, and in counterinsurgency, there's a phase where, I mean, you have to get to know the people, and you have to make amends. And I would say, to talk to you. You asked me what would I tell my grandson as I do. Um, when it comes to reconciliation,
Mhm.
sometimes there are some difficult things that we go through. However, there comes a point where you can forgive, where you can make amends, and we were able to see that play out.
Yeah. Yeah.
In most of my deployments, I was able to train with, or either train with, and fight with those opposing forces. So those are a few things.
Yeah, I'm proud to say my son-in-law's in the National Guard and serving, and I think, and many of my family were in the service. Had an uncle who's in the Marine Corps, and very proud of just all of them. I'm going to say that and suspect that you get a different uh, perspective on how important our freedom is and what we're doing to help people, as you said, experience that in their own. You have a perspective that most of us cannot have, I would say.
Yes, sir, I agree, and it's not unique to me. There are others that serve as well, but yes, we get to see different things. With the different deployments, it's very interesting. I have vivid images of the living conditions, the huts that some of them lived in, but juxtaposed with a satellite dish on top of the hut.
Yeah. It's-
So
yeah.
those are the type of images that are etched
Yeah.
in mine and others who've served with me as well.
Well, we're speaking here with Dr. Silas Session, who serves in the Kentucky Department of Veterans Affairs as the Executive Director for Veterans Service. And we're thanking you and all of our veterans today for their service and for our freedom. You know, we owe our freedom and our great life that we have here as Americans. We really owe that a real debt to those who have been on the front lines and who've been vigilant in helping maintain our freedom and our great standard of living here, as you said. Well, let's switch gears here for just a moment, Dr. Session, and talk about your work in the Kentucky Department of Affairs. It seems like there's more of a concentrated effort than ever, and I think this is a positive thing to provide not only for the physical needs but also the mental health needs and other needs of veterans Are we making the kind of progress here it seems like we're making, for example, in reducing suicides, for example, among veterans? What can you tell us about that?
We're trying. We're trying. In fact, I'm one of the co-chairs of the Kentucky's Governor's Challenge. And our Commissioner Allen, leads that effort, but I'm one of the co-chairs. And we actually won a grant for Jefferson County regarding suicide mortality review. So what that does is we study, and we're preparing to uh, to look at veteran deaths by suicide in Jefferson County and do what you call postvention after the fact to inform prevention and intervention of suicide. So that's a Kentucky initiative that we're going on. We just had a training in Jefferson County on September 24th where we were able to give some lethal means safety training. The highest method of death by suicide among veterans is by firearm. So that's what lethal means safety gets after. In 2022, veterans had a 14% higher death by suicide rate than non-veterans. So, as to your point, Jim, it is a tough situation to deal with, but we are doing all we can, and there are many organizations throughout the state, including Kentucky Department of Veteran Affairs and other departments, Cabinet Health and Family Services, that are doing many things to assist with suicide intervention and prevention. I can talk a little more if you.
Yeah,
If you
well,
want me to.
talk to the veteran that may be going through some struggles right now and they don't know what to do. Um, they're desperate. What can they do?
Great question. There are a number of services out there. For example, 988. That's a number. Number one, it's not only for anybody can call this number, but there is a if you dial, I believe it's one, you can go to the veteran side and you can get a professional who can talk you through whatever you're dealing with any time of the day, and it can be any issue. That's one resource. The Cabinet of Health and Family Services also has a Find Help Now Kentucky, a website where you can find mental health facilities, recovery facilities, places that has Narcan when it comes to helping somebody who's dealing with an overdose and things like that. We started a program under the leadership of Commissioner Allen called Connect a Vet. We're giving we're wanting to give 100 free phones to veterans that may not have a phone, that are 60 years and older, or if they have a traumatic brain injury. So that's another way we want to help. And we also have a free app for every veteran. It's called Here Now and Help. It does many things. For the sake of time, I do want to say this: there are clinical professionals that's available 24/7 on this app. And again, this is available for Kentucky veterans. We're one of the first states that it's a national program. It's one of the first states that have this. It's free for the veteran, but I do want to speak specifically to the veteran. That veterans are very self-sufficient, and I know time is going, but I
Mhm,
want to challenge you. Just like I want to challenge you: do not be too proud to get the help that you need.
mhm. Yeah.
Many veterans, the only shortfall they have is going to get the help, making the call, talking to the therapist, getting connected to the VA. So I really want to challenge veterans. I mean, again, you need to be strong. You need to be strong to help your family. But if you don't get the help you need, you can't help them.
We're speaking with Dr. Silas Session. Dr. Session, would you stay with us through the break, and we'll wrap up our conversation afterwards here on Veterans Day 2025. Stay with us here on Kentucky's Voice as we honor and celebrate those who have served and sacrificed so much for this country and now may need our help.
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us, speak up, stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Today, especially if you're a veteran serving this country. And just shoot us a text, 502 571 0970. We're delighted today to have with us Dr. Silas Session with the Kentucky Department of Veterans Affairs. And Dr. Session, I wanted you to know that I was so glad to see this new veterans facility being constructed there in Bowling Green. Colonel Roberts, named after Colonel Robert E. Spiller, who I knew personally, was a friend of mine, and Cora Jane, his wife, probably know two more people more involved in the community and had had served this country and sacrificed greatly and served really their whole lives as much as anybody I knew. But, you know, Dr. Session, you're a pastor, you're an educator, and the Kentucky Department of Veterans Affairs Commissioner Whitney Allen said, quote, "You're a great person to represent KDVA and a great example of a veteran who continues to serve well after his military obligations are complete." That's quite a compliment. And I wanted you to just maybe speak for a moment. When you talk to veterans, maybe especially those who are struggling, do you talk about getting involved, getting involved in some other, when they're over in combat, they're part of a group, they're part of a big group of people doing, is there some lesson there to help, and you as a pastor, I'm sure have some ability to talk to people about this and about really how can they maybe serve their way out of some of their conflict and problems.
Jim, you hit the nail right on the head. In the VA and SAMHSA's suicide report for last year, they mentioned that connectivity is one of the causes, a lack of connectivity. And from a veteran perspective and a spiritual perspective, you got veteran service organizations. They are looking for people to join. And I will tell you, Jim, it is a sad occasion. Yes, there's some things I'm with the veteran. There's some things you cannot replicate as far as that camaraderie had in the foxhole or at combat. However, being a part of the veteran service organization is one of the closest. But at the same time, The research also shows that being connected to the faith-based community does help with suicide prevention. In
Mhm.
fact, we started a program in Lexington called Let's Ask the Question. We want the faith-based community to know that you are a resource for the veteran, but also we want them to know the other resources that they can share with the veterans in their organizations. But you're exactly right. They need to get connected, and there are people who are already that they're waiting on them from the different veteran service organizations, different congregations or other religious groups that are around the state. They would welcome you, and they would assist you, and they want to be a part of, and they want to use your skills. Not in a negative way. They want to give you an opportunity, and I can't say it better than you said it, Jim. To serve out of their struggle, and that's a great example. That's a biblical concept. Joseph served out of his struggle. Daniel
Yep.
served out of his struggle. And we know that Jesus served out of his struggle as well.
He came to serve, seek and save and serve. Well, Dr. Silas Session, this has been great. Thank you. And I know you probably have some events you're going to today. We encourage everyone, find a veteran, thank them today. Say thank you for your service. And we'd love to hear from you here. But Dr. Session, I hope this isn't the last time we talk here, and would love to know more about what your office is doing and engage them on this show, and engage our listeners with them. And I'll follow up with you on that. But you have a great day, sir. We thank you again for your service, and God bless.
Anytime, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, this is Kentucky's Voice, and we want to encourage you to respond. And if you have thoughts about what you've heard today, if you're a veteran today, we'd love to hear from you. Send us a text, 502-571-0970. And you can also give at that number, as we're a listener-supported project here, conservative, Christian, common sense based project here. We're not shy about saying that. And we're also not shy about saying Obamacare hasn't worked. Big government health care programs don't work. And here to talk with us a little bit about this ending of this government shutdown, I think we finally have all the technical issues, and we've got a few minutes, few good minutes here at the end of our show to talk with Joel White, who's president of the Council for Affordable Health Care Coverage. Joel, thanks for hanging in here with us today. Are you there, sir?
I am here. Thank you so much.
We now see you and hear you. Hey, this government shutdown, you kind of, as I said earlier, you kind of felt like this was going to happen, that there was going to be a tipping point here with the Obamacare subsidies, with the money that taxpayers are spending on these big government healthcare programs. Give us your analysis of what's happening and what needs to happen to make our healthcare system work again for the people it serves.
Well, on the shutdown, the Democrats put a line in the sand that they couldn't defend. And so a shout out to all our veterans, my dad, my uncles,
Yeah.
veterans, and my son, a second lieutenant in the National Guard.
That's all right.
So happy Veterans Day, and thank you for your service. What's happening in Obamacare right now is that Obamacare is not working for working families. It's very expensive care. It is very restrictive care. It limits families' access to doctors and the drugs they need to stay and keep healthy. And so it's just not working. And I think what the Democrats are trying to do is pump more money into a failing system. You don't put more money into a house that's falling apart
Right.
to try and prop up the house. You need to rebuild. You need to set a new foundation. You need to adjust and make the appropriate structural changes to make sure the foundation is secure and the house will stay up.
Yeah.
So,
What kind of house do we need to build with healthcare? What is it that needs to happen from your viewpoint?
well, let me tell you what the house looks like right now. Since Obamacare was enacted, premiums have increased 169%.
Is that all?
That is much faster than employer premiums, which are up by 74%. And much higher than inflation, which is 39%. And what that means is that these premiums are growing faster than wages, and families are falling behind. By 2030, 40% of Americans will pay, or sorry, the typical American will spend 40% of their income just on premiums. That's not sustainable. So the other kind of insidious thing here is that the deductibles, or what people pay out of pocket to go see a doctor or get a drug, have doubled. They're twice as high as the average health savings account. They're 3 times higher than the typical employer plan. So the house is falling down. The house isn't working. Americans aren't getting good coverage. So a couple of things that we need to do, and
And
I testified
just
to
on
this.
that point, just because you have a card or just because you are part of an exchange, when we expanded Medicaid here in Kentucky, for example, 1 out of 3 Kentuckians on Medicaid, they had a card, but the coverage, the care wasn't there. The access to care often wasn't there or wasn't there for a long time.
This is a tragedy. The Obamacare deductibles on average are $5,000. A typical family can't afford that. And so even if you could afford it, what we see in Obamacare is these very restrictive health plans. 80% of the plans are HMOs, which means that you have to go see the plan's doctor. You can't go out of network, and they limit their networks. And so 40% of all people are having a problem just seeing a doctor. So they end up in the emergency room or they end up in the hospital. Their disease gets worse, and we all pay more. This program is just not working. It's very expensive, inferior coverage.
How do we get to the point where middle class Americans are subsidizing wealthy folks for on Obamacare? What's that? What's happened that has gotten us there?
Well, these are the COVID credits. That was the whole fight over the shutdown, and that is the Democrats are arguing we need to send more subsidies out to people, and those people are actually making more than 400% of poverty, 4 times the poverty level, and it's unlimited. So people around the country, $500,000, $600,000 a year in income, were getting subsidies that were paid for by taxes of lower wage working Americans and small businesses. That needs to be cut off. One, two, the lower income were actually paying $0 in premium as a result of these COVID credits. And what we saw was massive fraud. People getting signed up or signing up, misrepresenting their income to pay 0 premiums. We now have 4 to 6 million people who are signed up for a plan where the money's just going straight to the insurance company, and that individual was fraudulently enrolled. They never had a claim for the entire year that they were signed up. So it's unlikely that they actually knowingly signed up for a plan. So there's massive fraud in this program. And I don't know how we got here. I think these COVID credits were a temporary thing. They were meant to help people during a very difficult time during our country. But the Democrats wrote the law and said they should expire in 2025.
Yeah, they're the ones that said that. They're the ones that. That's right.
They wrote that. That's
right.
their law.
Well, that's right. We're speaking with Joel White, president of the Council for Affordable Health Care Coverage. It's curious to me, Joel, that while Democrats and the progressives on the left clamor that we need more affordable options, this government shutdown has been, in large part, really a line in the sand to defend the status quo. And as you talked about, healthcare costs, even what employers are paying, are double what inflation has been. So it can't be just blamed on that. This is what you have when you get into a government-run program where nobody knows the cost of anything. Nobody knows what an MRI cost or an X-ray cost or services cost. Is that not part of the issue here?
Yeah, in fact, you can get an MRI that's 2, 3, 4 times cheaper just by paying cash than if you went through your insurance plan. It's a tragedy. And that's the status quo. And so I think what President Trump and congressional Republicans are talking about is before we spend one more dime on a subsidy on a house that's falling down, we need to reassess and actually build a better plan. And we can. So we can, right now, the subsidies that go to people to lower their premiums don't go to the person, they go to the insurance company. So what President Trump has suggested is let's send that money to the person, to the consumer.
Let them decide where to
and
spend
let
that.
them decide.
That would do
by the way,
world of wonder. Would it not do a world of good?
it would open up competition and choice. There are more affordable plans on the market than Obamacare. Some is 7 times less expensive. If you used a subsidy under the Trump plan, for that plan, you could keep the difference, put it in a health savings account, and then spend money on things that your insurance doesn't cover, maybe for your kids' eyewear or vision care or drugs or out-of-pocket costs for the doctor. It is vastly superior to what we have today.
And that would cause a better product, that would cause better service for the consumer and the customer. Joel White, we don't have enough time to talk about this, but say something quickly about President Trump's attempt to at least lower prices on important drugs like insulin and weight loss drugs about 15 seconds.
Yeah. So one of the things they want to do is allow people to pay cash through Trump RX. You get about a 20 to 80% discount on those drugs. Counts against your insurance, will dramatically lower costs for consumers.
Joe White, president of the Council for Affordable Health Care Coverage. Let's not let this be the last time we talk. Thanks for joining us today. And thank you for joining us on Kentucky's Voice. Tell a veteran you appreciate them. Thank them for their service. And be with us again tomorrow here on Kentucky's Voice. God bless.